Welcome back. Well, today we have on Dr. Brian Kim, and as I said, we're going to be talking about age-related macular degeneration. Nice to have you here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Ken, for having me back.
Yeah, and this is Awareness Month, right?
That's correct. Yeah, February is a Macular Degeneration Awareness Month. So every year it comes around to be this time. We like to educate and make this much more aware in the public's eye. So yeah.
First, briefly, we'll look at the pictures here between normal vision and vision with AMD. What is macular degeneration?
So briefly, macular degeneration is something that we often hear about. It's often one of the most feared things and most feared diagnoses that you can hear. I'm sure you were aware.
Yeah.
It's a common misconception that it causes total blindness, and this really just is not the case. We read it everywhere. We hear it from friends. Sure, it affects our central vision, which is, of course, our most important part of our vision, but we always keep our peripheral vision. So this is sort of like a simulation of what someone might see who has advanced macular degeneration.
Okay.
So,
and why would someone get this? Is it hereditary? Is it a disease you get, a virus?
That's the million-dollar question, actually. So it's a multifactorial problem, meaning that there are so many problems, or there are so many factors involved in this condition that we really haven't been able to identify anything in particular.
Okay.
The largest factor is, or the largest factors, I should say, are really aging, the normal aging process of just our normal bodies. But genetics comes into play, diet, smoking. Those are all really the big ones. But we really haven't been able to pin down exactly.
Okay. As far as aging, this is what we're talking today, age-related macular degeneration. So is there a certain age range where you're more likely to have this come on?
Absolutely. This is something that typically affects people over the age of 55.
Okay.
And I like to say that if we all live long enough, we are all subject to getting this. Mostly because the largest factor here is really aging, the normal aging process. So so AMD, or age-related macular degeneration, is something that we generally divide into two different types. And we can probably see
that dry and wet.
That's correct, the dry and the wet. And the dry is the so-called quote-unquote good macular degeneration to have. It's something that's much more slow. It is progressive. The hard part here is that we don't have any treatments for it. It's similar to the aging process. We don't have any fountain of youth at this point in time. We can't reverse the damage. But what we can do is slow the aging process down, and we do that with micronutrients, vitamins, dietary changes. But the key here in dry macular degeneration is really to detect early changes that might lead you to more advanced macular degeneration, such as the wet form.
Okay. So does dry always go to the wet form, or are they totally separate, or can one present before the other?
They're very separate, but interrelated, meaning that we usually start off with the dry macular degeneration, and about 10% of people develop the wet kind.
Okay.
And in a sense, it's sort of like a ticking time bomb when you have the diagnosis of dry macular degeneration, because you don't really know when or if you're even going to develop the more severe kind, it's the so-called bad kind of macular degeneration, which is the wet. So now, wet macular degeneration, as many people are familiar with, is that we actually do have treatments, but it's treatments to slow down the process of vision loss.
Okay. Now, the wet, we're looking over here.
Yes.
Leaking and bleeding versus atrophy on the dry.
That's correct. Yeah, and this is something that when dry macular degeneration starts to reach a critical point, and what that trigger is, we don't really know. But there can be a certain signal where the eye starts to leak fluid or starts to even bleed, and that can lead to a much more sudden and devastating vision loss. Very rapid progression of loss of central vision. Okay,
and again, as you said, early detection is the key. Now we're getting to this slide here, and we're looking at both a grid and a device that you were telling me earlier is fairly new.
Yes, this is actually the most exciting news that we've heard from dry macular degeneration in a long time, and I frequently get that question in the clinic, which is, what can I do if I have dry macular degeneration? what's the next step, or are there any advances? Well, for decades we've been using this grid. It's called an Amsler grid, and whereby the person looks at that on a daily basis and really tries to identify any changes, any spots of distortion, any new dark spots. And it's been great, and it's the standard of care. What we're looking for, though, are changes that have already occurred. So we're looking for pretty significant cases. When now we have technology, and this is something, this device, actually it's a program, it's called 4C Home, that it was just FDA approved in the past couple months. Very exciting actually here. So if you're comfortable using a computer mouse and technology, this is something that's actually very easy to do, and it actually identifies conversion to worsening macular degeneration at a much earlier stage.
And how does it work? Is this something, when I see the word home, you take home with you?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's something that you take home with you. Your doctor prescribes this, and you do this on a daily basis. It's able to pick up, in some cases, wet macular degeneration before even our sophisticated equipment in the office can even pick it up. That's critical here because the early detection is key to really preserving vision.
Now, with this device, do people simply look into it? Are they still looking at a grid, or exactly what's going on?
That's exactly right. It's similar. We're looking at distorted or wavy lines in this program, and it's basically a video game for a couple minutes, and it's pretty straightforward to do, and it doesn't take more than a couple minutes at home out of your day, and any problems or deviations in your normal pattern, it alerts the company, and the company calls the doctor and says, you know what, Mr. Smith probably needs to come in a little bit sooner than their scheduled appointment, so they can have an evaluation. And it should be known, actually, before I go any further, that I have no financial interest in this company. This is something that's actually medically has been shown to be extremely beneficial to the general public.
When did it come out?
So I want to say it's been out in clinical trials for probably a few years now, but has not been FDA approved until now. So only now can physicians actually prescribe this. So.
And you would prescribe this to anyone who had the dry macular degeneration? I mean, at what point do you say you need to start taking this home with you?
That's correct. Yeah, it's really for people who have the most to lose. So people who have highly functional vision, typically 20/70 vision or better, are the people. These are the people who really benefit the most. And unfortunately, I'm sorry I put a graph on there, and I hate showing graphs, and data. But what this is showing is that the people who have 20/40 vision or better, 94% of people who are able to keep that vision because of early detection versus the 62% with the standard grid. So I mean, it's a dramatic difference. So this is really something that's going to change. In my opinion, is going to change the way we treat dry macular degeneration. So.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Now, as far as availability of this, how do you get these? Do you call the company when you want to prescribe? They send it out to the person. Do they take it home? How does that work?
That's right. So it's a prescription that the doctor actually prescribes and sends into the company. The company then contacts the patient and finds and sends it to them and signs them up for their program. So really very exciting. It's really sort of a hands-off kind of thing. You do your day-to-day things, and it flags if there's a problem. So
how long would someone have this? Would they have it for months, years?
Typically,
it just depends?
Yeah, it just depends. It just depends. So and there are multiple factors and deciding factors. Not everybody's a candidate for this.
Okay.
So that should be set up front. But it's really the people who have what I call driving vision. So people who really have the highest level of vision, who also have, you could also flip that around and say people who have the most to lose from having wet macula.
Very interesting.
So,
So I understand that you are having an educational seminar coming up in really about 3 weeks, I think, right on the 23rd?
Yes, that's correct, yes. Macular degeneration is too vast of a subject, and it often leads to more questions than it does answers in such a short time period. So every year we at Harvard Eye Associates give a seminar during Macular Degeneration Awareness Month, and it's open to the general public, so if anybody would like to come down, please feel free to give us a call. We're happy to
All right. Is it going to be right over in your office?
That's correct,
Okay,
yeah.
so it's right nearby here. So yeah, do give them a call, RSVP to Christine Mays at 949-952-67, or you may email at christinem@harvard.com. So either a call or email, but I think this would be something very beneficial to people. This is coming up, by the way, on February 23rd. It's about 3 weeks from now. Very good. And great advances.
Great advances.
It's wonderful. Where is this
Very
company
exciting.
located, by the way? For us?
Actually, it's out of, I want to say, I think it's Israel,
Oh,
actually. So yeah,
very
the
good.
headquarters, so.
All right. Thank you for the information. Always good
Very
to see you. And once again, if you're interested in this, it's 3 weeks from now, February 23rd. Please RSVP to Christine Mays at 949-900-5267, or you may email at christinem@harvard.com, and that's Christine with a K. All right. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, Ken.
All right. We'll be right back.